In 1974, something strange happened on the set of Blazing Saddles that most people don't know. The actor who played the Waco Kid disappeared after just one day of filming. What he did 4 years later still lingers in Hollywood as a haunting mystery. Around the same time, legendary actor John Wayne read the movie's script and said 3 words that changed the entire direction of the film. There was also an original title for the movie that directly referenced Malcolm X, a connection Warner Brothers quietly removed. Even the governor's name in the film holds a secret message that only French historians are likely to understand. These aren't just interesting facts, they're secrets that were kept hidden for nearly 50 years. Blazing Saddles started from a bold and risky idea. The movie was first titled Tex X, a reference to Malcolm X. It was created by Andrew Bergman, a young writer in his 20s, who wanted to tell a story about a black sheriff in an all-white Western town. Just having a black man in charge in an old Western setting was revolutionary at the time. The idea flipped the usual cowboy story upside down and challenged Hollywood's clean, whitewashed image of the Old West. The name, Tex X, wasn't just meant to be funny, it was a political statement. The title was changed, but that original bold spirit stayed in the script that eventually became Blazing Saddles. Before Mel Brooks got involved, the film was almost made with a totally different team. Alan Arkin was supposed to direct, and James Earl Jones was set to star as the sheriff. This was before Jones became the voice of Darth Vader. He had a serious and powerful presence, but not a background in comedy. The project didn't move forward. Creative disagreements, nervous studio executives, and the intense nature of the script scared everyone away. It was too bold for the time. Then Mel Brooks came in and brought the movie back to life. He didn't hold back. He pushed the story even further. That earlier failure actually helped, because it cleared the way for a more daring version. When Brooks got the job, he wasn't in a good place. His last film had failed, he had no money, a baby on the way with Anne Bancroft, and was thinking about quitting movies altogether. He didn't take Blazing Saddles because he had full confidence. He took it because he had no choice. Later, he said this movie saved his life. It allowed him to buy a house, eat better, and finally stop worrying. The writing process was chaotic. Brooks didn't write the film alone. He brought in 4 other writers: Andrew Bergman, Richard Pryor, Norman Steinberg, and Alan Ugger. Their writing sessions were loud, intense, and full of arguments. Everyone fought to get their jokes included. They often worked late into the night, fueled by Chinese takeout. The first script draft was over 400 pages, enough for an 8-hour movie. They cut it down to 275 pages, which was still too long, but packed with fearless humor. There was no plan to play it safe. Brooks even put a sign on the wall that said, "Please do not write a polite script." That message guided the whole process. He told the team to break all the rules, because they didn't think the movie would get made anyway. So they went all out. They mocked racism, made fun of Hollywood traditions, and joked about things nobody dared to talk about. Richard Pryor wrote jokes about Jewish people, and the Jewish writers wrote jokes about black people. Everyone worked on everything. That mix is what gave the film its fearless, unpredictable energy. Richard Pryor was originally meant to star as Sheriff Bart. Brooks wanted him from the beginning. But the studio, Warner Brothers, said no. They thought Pryor's drug problems and recent jail time made him too risky to insure. Brooks was furious and almost quit the movie, but Pryor calmed him down. He told Brooks to keep going and said they would find the right actor. Pryor stayed on as a writer and helped shape the tone of the entire film. In the end, Cleavon Little got the lead role. Brooks later said it was a lucky break, but it's still interesting to imagine what Pryor would have done in the role, especially since he and Gene Wilder became a famous comedy team just a couple of years later. One of the biggest surprises was that Mel Brooks wanted John Wayne to play the Waco Kid. At the time, Wayne was still one of the most famous actors in the world, known for his serious cowboy roles. Brooks gave him the script, and Wayne read it overnight. He said he laughed a lot, but turned it down. He thought the humor was too dirty for his public image, though he promised to be first in line to see the movie. It's fascinating to imagine the straightest, most serious cowboy actor of all time playing a drunken, washed-up gunslinger in a film that makes fun of everything he stood for. It didn't happen, but it almost did. After John Wayne said no, Brooks became focused on casting Dan Daly, even though Daly wasn't known for westerns. Dan Daly was known for musicals, not westerns, but he could ride a horse better than almost anyone. Mel Brooks thought he'd be perfect for the role of the Waco Kid. He even tracked Daly down in Hawaii to convince him. Daly loved the script, but he had to say no. His eyesight was failing, and he admitted he was nearly blind. That meant he couldn't ride safely anymore. Brooks was heartbroken. He kept searching for the right actor, but nothing worked out. Then came the biggest casting disaster of all. Brooks hired Gig Young, an Oscar-winning actor who had the tired, broken-down look he wanted for the character. But Young had a serious drinking problem. On the very first day of filming, during the jail cell scene, he started shaking violently. At first, Brooks thought he was just acting. But then green bile came out of Young's mouth, and he had to be rushed to the hospital. Brooks later said, "If you want an alcoholic, don't cast an alcoholic." Young never returned to the set and later sued Warner Brothers. Once again, the movie had lost its Waco Kid. That's when Gene Wilder stepped in. Brooks hadn't originally considered him for the role. He thought Wilder looked too young and too fresh-faced. Earlier he had offered Wilder the role of the villain, but Wilder had turned it down. Now desperate, Brooks called Wilder in tears. Wilder had just worked with Brooks on The Producers and agreed to help. He flew to Los Angeles immediately. When he tried on the costume, it fit perfectly. That Monday, he was already filming. His calm style and quirky timing made the Waco Kid unforgettable. His chemistry with Cleavon Little gave the movie its emotional core. That last-minute casting saved the whole film. When Brooks first screened Blazing Saddles for the top Warner Brothers executives, it went terribly. The room was silent. Nobody laughed. Not even once. The movie had fart jokes, a scene where someone punches a horse, and multiple uses of the N-word. Instead of laughing, the executives were uncomfortable, some even angry. Leo Greenfield, the studio's head of domestic distribution, said they should just bury the film and take the financial loss. Others agreed. They didn't just dislike the movie, they wanted it gone. They gave Brooks a long list of changes to make. They told him to cut the campfire fart scene, remove the racial slurs, and delete the violent moments. Brooks took the list, left the room, and immediately crumpled it into a ball and threw it away. He had no intention of changing anything. Instead, he organized a second screening, but this time, it wasn't for the executives. It was for the regular employees, the secretaries, janitors, and mailroom workers. And this time, the reaction was totally different. From the first joke, the room exploded with laughter. People were gasping for air, falling out of their chairs, and rolling on the floor. Norman Steinberg, one of the writers, said the scene was unforgettable. And Brooks, watching it all, finally felt confident. He said to himself, "This is our film." The executives couldn't ignore that kind of response. Real audiences loved the movie, and that's what saved it. Even after seeing how much the regular people loved it, the studio was still nervous. They decided not to risk a wide release. Instead, they released Blazing Saddles in just 3 cities: New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago. There were no ads, no critic screenings, and no publicity. They just quietly put it in theaters to see what happened. The hope was that maybe it would perform well enough to avoid embarrassment. But something unexpected happened. Theaters were packed. Audiences screamed with laughter. Word of mouth spread like wildfire. The film was an instant hit. Critics didn't know what to make of it. Some called it vulgar and offensive, while others praised its boldness. But audiences kept coming. By spring of 1974, Blazing Saddles was playing in cities and towns all across the country. Even in quiet suburban areas, theaters were sold out. People quoted the film, argued about it, and came back again and again. It had become a cultural event. Even bad reviews had to admit that audiences were loving it. The film broke every rule and got away with it. It made it past the censors, and then it made history. The budget was only $2.6 million, but it earned $119.6 million in North America alone, making it the highest-grossing film of 1974. Around 63 million people saw it in theaters. That's more than any Lord of the Rings film managed. Adjusted for inflation, it made nearly $600 million. It wasn't just a success, it was a cultural phenomenon. Mel Brooks trusted his instincts. He ignored the executives and made the film he wanted to make. And it worked. Blazing Saddles didn't just survive, it completely changed what comedy could be. Even the smallest details were packed with meaning. The governor's name, William J. Lupetto, sounded like nonsense. But it was actually a reference to a real French performer named Joseph Pujol, born in 1857. He was known as Lupetto, which means the fart maniac. That wasn't just a nickname, it was his entire act. He could pull air or water into his rectum and release it in rhythm. He played songs, blew out candles, and could even smoke a cigarette using only his backside. He became so famous that nurses were assigned to his shows because people often fainted from laughing too hard. Someone even reportedly died laughing during one of his acts. He earned more money than the most famous actress in France. Brooks named the governor after him as a tribute, not just for laughs, but to honor a forgotten legend of physical comedy. Brooks didn't stop there. He also played a Native American chief in one of the film's most outrageous scenes. The chief speaks fluent Yiddish and lets a wagon of black settlers pass unharmed, saying, "They darker than us," and adding in Yiddish, "Don't be crazy, let them go as long as you're healthy." It was shocking and absurd, and that was the point. In early Hollywood, native roles were often played by Jewish actors. Brooks turned that history into a joke so layered that only viewers who knew both Jewish culture and film history would fully understand. He also filled the film with hidden versions of himself. The background singers for Lily Von Stupp? That's him. The Heckler in the final fight scene? Also him. He left his voice in the soundtrack in sneaky places, filling the film with tiny surprises. Every frame was overloaded with humor. If something broke the rules of normal storytelling, Brooks didn't fix it, he leaned into it harder. One perfect example of this rule-breaking is the use of anachronisms, things that don't belong in the time period. The movie takes place in the Old West, but suddenly the Count Basie Orchestra appears in the middle of a desert, dressed in tuxedos, playing April in Paris, a song from the 1930s. Jazz didn't even exist in 1874, when the film is set. Even ragtime music wouldn't come around for another 2 decades. But there they are, playing as if it's completely normal. The moment is jarring, funny, and makes no sense, and that's exactly why it works. It's one of the most iconic scenes in the film. The version of April in Paris used in the movie wasn't just any version. It was Count Basie's famous 1955 arrangement, instantly recognizable to jazz fans. The scene interrupts the Western story completely, but somehow makes it even better. Brooks wasn't aiming for realism. He was using comedy to flip every tradition upside down, and people loved him for it.